We're going to explain the invalid syntax error related to Elif in Python. This error typically arises when you've made a mistake in the structure or spelling of your Elif statement within a conditional block. Let's break down the common causes and how to fix them. 1. Incorrect indentation. Python relies heavily on indentation to define code blocks. The elif statement, along with the if statement it follows and the code block within the elif, must have the same indentation level. Forgetting to indent correctly, or using inconsistent indentation, for example mixing tabs and spaces, will trigger the invalid syntax error. Ensure all lines under the elif are indented by the same amount, usually 4 spaces, as the if statement. 2. Misspelling elif. A simple typo, like writing elif or else if, the latter is not valid Python syntax, will result in a syntax error. Double-check your spelling. Python is case-sensitive. Elif is lowercase. 3. Missing colon. Every elif statement must end with a colon. This colon signals the start of the code block that will execute if the condition in the elif is met. Forgetting the colon is a frequent source of this error. 4. Incorrect conditional expression. The condition following the elif keyword must be a valid Boolean expression that evaluates to either true or false. This involves using comparison operators, equal sign, equal sign, equal sign, equal sign, equal sign, logical operators, and or not, or checking the truthiness of variables. A syntax error can arise from an incorrect use of these operators or an invalid type comparison. For example, comparing a string to an integer without proper type conversion will raise a runtime error, not a syntax error, and may manifest with a similar error message in some interpreters. 5. Elif outside of an if block. You can only use an elif statement after an if statement. An elif statement cannot stand alone. If you're trying to use an elif without a preceding if, you have a structural problem in your code. You might need to wrap the elif and any subsequent elif or else statements in an if block. 6. Nested if statements versus elif. Consider whether your logic truly requires multiple elif statements or if nested if statements would improve code readability and clarity. Sometimes a series of nested if blocks is easier to understand than a long chain of elif conditions, even if both achieve the same result. 7. Errors in earlier lines. Sometimes the error message points to an elif line, but the actual problem lies on a preceding line. Carefully examine the code above the reported error for syntax issues, especially if you are dealing with multi-line statements or complex conditional expressions. By carefully reviewing these points, and using a good code editor with syntax highlighting, which visually identifies incorrect indentation, you can quickly resolve most invalid syntax errors related to elif statements in your Python code. Remember to carefully check your indentation, spelling, and the presence of the colon at the end of each elif statement.